Hey, I'm Lindsay Lyman. I worked almost 12 years at Amazon and saw so many brilliant and successful overachievers burn themselves out and leave their jobs because they're so stressed and anxious. But guess what? Having a successful career does not have to be at the expense of your mental sanity and personal time. There's an easier way, and I can show you how. Let's do this. Hey friends, how are you? We had our first day at the pool and I'm loving it. You know, when people tell you like, find your happy place, go to your happy place. Mine is almost always somewhere sunny by the water. Maybe it's a pool, maybe it's a beach, maybe it's the boat. I love riding in the boat. I just love it. I don't know why. There's something like so grounding and calming and soothing and fun about it. I love a boat. So if you're a friend with a boat, let's be friends. Because that's my favorite way to boat, is to just invite myself to boat with someone else. Anyhow, before we jump into the topic today, would you do me a favor? Would you share this podcast with maybe a coworker, maybe a friend? Maybe there's a team chat. Share this with people. I really want people to get the help that they're looking for, and I need your help to do that. So sharing is caring. Hit the share button, y'all. All right, today I want to talk about why stress is actually good for you. Now, stick with me. This is not like a bait and switch. There's some real data and science behind this that I want to talk about. And I'm going to dive into what I actually mean by that, but I'm also not discrediting that life is hard and stressful sometimes, okay? Saying I'm stressed is a pretty common response I hear from most people as we talk about how things are going in their life or at work. We almost kind of brush it off and we're like, yeah, like you're kind of expected to be stressed. Life is stressful. We all just got to take that as fact. And the game every day is how do we manage and juggle the stress? But when we look up the definition of stress, the World Health Organization defines stress as a state of worry or mental tension caused by a difficult situation. They say stress is a natural human response that prompts us to address challenges and threats in our lives. Everyone experiences stress to some degree. Okay, now listen to this line that they say. The way we respond to stress, however, makes a difference in our overall well-being. So I want to talk about that, but not in the typical, here's some tips or tricks or things you could try to do if you're feeling stress. I want to talk about how we respond when things are stressful is important in the moment. So as we dive a little bit deeper, there's actually two types of stress. One is distress. This is kind of the kind that negatively impacts us. But the other kind is eustress. It's spelled EUSTRESS if you want to go Google it and look it up. But eustress has a positive impact on us. It is very helpful. It's the stress that energizes us and moves us and drives us forward. I kind of think of eustress as like a deadline on a project. We need a deadline. We need a little bit of that stress, a little bit of that pressure to energize us, to get us up and doing it, or we're never going to do it. And it's just going to stay on our to-do list. I can think of things that have been on my to-do list for months because there's no stress tied to it of like, I have to get it done by this point, or someone's counting on me, or my job is dependent on it. They're just things I would like to do. There's not enough stress for me to actually feel motivated and drive me forward to go and do it. They're just things that kind of stay on my to-do list forever. I've seen this with people who retire or go on extended leave. It's like all we want is to just not feel the stress, to just relax. I went through this a little bit as I left my corporate job and went into coaching full time. We just want less stress. But when we don't have this eustress, when we don't have this positive stress, we start to kind of like get down and depressed and we start questioning it all. That's why, again, like people that retire, you go from this highly intense, stressful situation, which I'm not saying let's be crazy, ridiculous, stressed out. That's not what I'm saying. But when you go the completely opposite and don't have any stress, it's a problem as well. So we do want a little bit of positive stress in our lives. It makes us think more clearly. Think about the last time you got handed a project with a deadline, that you weren't completely flooded and overwhelmed with stress, that you weren't in distress, but you were in this eustress. What happens? You get to work. You break it down. You look around corners. You get to work and come up with a plan to deliver on that thing. So I like to think of it almost as like a bell curve, okay? If on the horizontal x-axis, how much energy we have, and on the y-axis is kind of the result or what you're able to produce. If you think of it as like having a bell curve, there's a very fine tipping point in the middle of that bell curve from where you are optimally performing. Okay, so if we look at that bell curve, on the left-hand side is where that eustress comes in. And once we've tipped over that center point, the right-hand side is where the distress happens. But here's what I want to tell you about the way you respond to stress and why it's important. What you think about stress significantly matters. My message to you today is we need to stop stressing about stress. We are making it worse. What we think about it, it's actually a really big deal. When we break it down scientifically, stress physically is tension in our body. It's a biological response to things happening around you. It's not going to kill you. It is literally tight muscles, and they get more and more intense, and your body will start to release more and more chemicals in your body if you don't pay attention to it. But it's not a big deal. There's an amazing TED Talk by Kelly McGonigal. She's a health psychologist. I'll link to the TED Talk in the show notes. But in essence, she talks a lot about the data and science behind why what you think about stress actually matters. Okay. We have made stress the bad guy, the enemy. Think about in a movie, there's a million side characters that you don't really think much about because they just have these minor parts, but the bad guy, you're all in and you're all invested in. We've made stress the bad guy in our lives, where I want us to think of it more as like a side character. So in this study that Dr. McGonigal references, there was a study conducted on 30,000 adults in the US for about 8 years. And they asked everyone 2 questions. How much stress have you experienced in the last year? And then they also asked, do you believe that stress is harmful to your health? Then they used public data and all sorts of things to see who died. A little morbid. But people who experienced a lot of stress in the previous year, not surprising, had a 43% increase rate of dying. But here's the thing. It was only for those people who also believed that stress was harmful to their health. People who had a lot of stress but didn't view stress as harmful were actually not more likely to die. They were at the lowest risk of anyone in the study, even people with little stress. The researchers in this project estimated that over the course of the 8 years that they did this study, about 182,000 Americans died prematurely, not from stress, but from a belief that stress is bad for you. Okay, it's really true. Science says when you change your mind about stress, you will change your body's response to stress. Here's the thing. When we start to feel stress, your heart might be pounding. You're probably breathing faster. Maybe you're sweating. A lot of people might call this anxiety. But what if you viewed this as a sign that your body was getting energized and preparing you to meet the challenge? Remember, if we go back to that bell curve, on that horizontal axis is the energy. Your body is pulling you further along, giving you more energy as you start to feel these physical symptoms. So there was another study that was conducted at Harvard University where they worked with a group of participants, and before the stress tests they implemented with them, they taught these participants to rethink about their stress response and see it as something good and something helpful. The participants who learned to view stress as helpful right? Your brain's getting more oxygen, your body has more energy, you're ready for action. This group that learned to view stress as helpful, they were less stressed out, less anxious, and more confident. Not only that, but their physical stress response changed. Typical stress response, your heart rate goes up and your blood vessels constrict. Now, this is really not a good place to be in all the time. This is when you start to have health issues, right? As your blood vessels are constricting, you start to have heart problems. In this study, when the participants who saw stress as helpful were stressed, their blood vessels stayed relaxed as their heart continued to pound. Okay, so their heart rate did increase, but their blood vessels stayed relaxed. Guess what? This is the same thing physically that happens in moments of joy, of courage. So Dr. McGonigal goes on from there and she talks about even more ways that stress is actually helpful, but the data and the science is showing what you think about stress matters. Your body is going to physically respond accordingly. Your body believes what you think. We need to stop believing that stress is bad. What I would offer to you to believe instead is when you start to feel that, realize your body is getting energized to help you through this thing you want to do, or you need to do, or you're going to do. We want more energy when we need to do hard things. We want more oxygen going through our body so we're more alert, we're more attentive. This is a really good thing. Feeling stressed about stress puts us in that distress side of the bell curve. When we believe that feeling stress is actually helpful, that is a way it keeps us in that eustress side of the bell curve and allows us to perform at our optimal level. Lastly, I do want to recommend remove whatever obstacles you can to reduce stress in your life. The less stress you need to manage, the better. Go and listen to episode 99 titled Do Less. I dive into this in a lot of detail, but this is why people will wear the same outfit every day. They don't want the stress of having to decide what to do. This is why some people meal prep, because when they're hungry, they don't want to have to decide and feel the stress in the moment. They're just removing those obstacles so the stress isn't there. Stop updating that report no one's looking at. Stop saying yes to things you don't need to and that you actually mean no to. One of the things I loved about during the pandemic was we weren't running kids all around to the 50 million things anymore. There was so much less stress because we didn't have to be 5 places at once. Now we just do one activity at a time because we're just removing stressful obstacles. I'm always thinking, how can I reduce my cognitive load of the life I live and still be the person I want and have the experiences I want? That's why I order groceries online. It's so much less stressful. Do they always get the order perfect? No. Do I love how they pick out produce sometimes? No. But it's an obstacle where I'm reducing the stress of needing to get to the store, get through the store, not knowing how long it's going to take. I can easily remove that obstacle. So I'm all in for those things as well, but we want stress. It's helpful. It motivates us. It energizes us. It drives us. It gets us up and off our butt and moving forward to do things. We want that stress to be like a wave on our back, pushing us and propelling us forward. When we're in that distress, it's not bad. Your body is helping you do hard things to get you back to the top performance part of that bell curve. Stress is fine. It's literally tight muscles and chemicals in your body. It's normal. It's okay to be stressed. So here's what I offer to you today. Instead of saying, I'm just so stressed, it's such a default thing we say so many times a day. Instead of even just thinking that, like it's a bad thing, I know it sounds subtle, but it's everything. What you think about stress is important. Shift that thinking from, I'm so stressed, to, I have so much energy built up in my body to work on the things I want to get done. Just feels a little more relaxing When you're relaxed, your body is able to manage that stress, keep your heart rate pounding, give you that increased energy without those blood vessels tightening and constricting, and without being stressed about being stressed. It's subtle and it's everything. All right, go feel that energy. Go build it up inside of you. Remove those things you can to not be stressed, and really just pay attention this week to, are you in that eustress or distress zone, and how could you get yourself back to that healthy level of stress? All right, my friends, you're amazing. You got this. We'll talk soon. If what you're learning from this podcast is helping, this is just the beginning. Each week, I offer a limited number of coffee chats so that you and I can connect one-on-one and talk specifically about what's going on for you. You'll leave this call feeling more hopeful and motivated, but I'm also going to teach you a few things to try right away to get unstuck. Space is very limited and these are free, so grab your spot before they're gone. Click the link in the show notes or go to lindsaylymancoaching.com/chat and sign up today. You got this.